My name is Morgan, and I am 27 years old. For most of my life, I was what folks might call an afterthought, the quiet one at the edge of family photos. The shadow behind the laughter at crowded tables. Some people are born into families who cherish them like rare gems. I, on the other hand, always felt more like a borrowed coat at Thanksgiving, useful in a pinch. Easily forgotten in the closet when the festivities ended. What nobody ever realized, not even those who claimed to know me best, was that I had a secret, a quiet strength. Something my late father called iron behind the velvet. And as autumn swept over the city once again, bringing with it the rustle of brown leaves and the scent of cinnamon from distant bakeries, I could feel change coming. If you have ever been overlooked by those who are supposed to love you most, you might understand why this story still sits heavy in my chest. I grew up under the roof of my Aunt Victoria, a woman whose name fit her like a crown, imposing, cold, never to be questioned. Victoria was the gatekeeper of all things important after my parents' accident, a tragedy that left me in her care at the tender age of 10. She controlled every key, every bank account, every whispered conversation about the estate and the future. Her daughter Charlotte was the golden child, bright, beautiful, the one whose ballet recitals brought the family to their feet. I was just Morgan, the quiet cousin who handed out programs and fetched coats, the one no one expected much from, except perhaps silence. It's funny, the details you remember. My 10th birthday, Victoria promised a party with balloons and chocolate cake. I wore my best dress and waited by the window for the cousins and neighbors to arrive. Instead, I watched Charlotte hurry off to her dance competition. Watched Victoria's face crumple with annoyance as she muttered, "Some things are more important than cake." Morgan, try to be understanding. There was no singing that night. No candles. Just a few stale cookies on a chipped plate and the sound of Charlotte's trophies being polished in the next room. That was the first lesson in this house. Your worth was measured by the pride you brought to Victoria's voice, not by the quiet ache of your own disappointments. Years slipped by like water through my fingers. I did well in school, earned a scholarship, worked part-time jobs, saw letters home about my grades. When Charlotte turned 16, she got a car, gleaming silver, paid for with what Victoria called family funds. When I graduated with honors, Victoria nodded once, barely looking up from her magazine. "That's what we expect of you, Morgan." Charlotte could have done the same if she'd wanted to. I remember feeling that strange, a hollow sense of pride knowing I had achieved something and yet watching it evaporate like dew on a hot morning. If you have ever felt invisible beside someone else's spotlight, you know the feeling, I mean. Money was always there, spoken of in tight-lipped whispers, counted behind closed doors. When I asked Victoria for help with college tuition, she pursed her lips and said, "The world doesn't owe you anything. You need to learn that now." Charlotte, meanwhile, never saw a bill with her name on it. Family paid for her dance lessons, her summer abroad, even her deposit on a new apartment when she graduated. For me, it was student loans and late nights in the library, chasing something I couldn't quite name, maybe approval, maybe escape. Still, I never stopped helping. When Victoria was diagnosed with a serious illness 2 winters ago, I sent an anonymous bank transfer to cover the $75,000 in hospital bills. She never questioned where the money came from, just told the neighbors how family always finds a way. When Charlotte needed a down payment for her first house, I called in a favor with an old friend, arranging the loan under a different name. Not once did either of them say thank you. And perhaps that's the way things were always meant to be. If you have ever given more than you received, I hope you'll stay with me as I tell the rest. Looking back, the pattern was always clear. But I only truly saw it as Thanksgiving approached that year. Victoria began making plans for a celebration fit for Charlotte's new chapter, a dinner in the penthouse. Invitations to family and friends. Talk of a housewarming that never once included my name. I heard her on the phone. Her voice sharp and triumphant. "We'll make it official at dinner. The place will be Charlotte's soon enough." If I'm honest, I should have seen it coming. What I didn't know then was that the real change, the moment that would turn their world upside down, was already quietly moving toward us like the slow, relentless turn of autumn to winter. So, if you have ever wondered what happens when the quiet one finally stands up, or when secrets refuse to stay buried, you might want to keep listening. The story isn't over yet. The days leading up to Thanksgiving seemed to pass in a strange hush, as if the whole city was holding its breath. Outside my window, the skyline was a ribbon of gray and gold. And each evening I watched the sun drop behind glass towers with a sense of anticipation. If you have ever lived with a secret one that trembles just beneath your skin, you know how every ordinary day feels tinged with possibility. For the first time in my life, I was not waiting for someone else to decide what happened next. I was ready to shape my own ending. It began with a letter, as so many turning points do. One morning, a thick envelope arrived, stamped by the law office that had managed my parents' estate since the accident. My hands shook a little as I slid my thumb under the flap. Inside was a notice: the trust my father had established for me would, on my 25th birthday, transfer full legal ownership of the penthouse and all associated assets into my name. The day had come and gone weeks before. The only thing required was my signature, already provided months earlier during a quiet meeting at the attorney's office. No ceremony, no fanfare. Just a few strokes of a pen and a handshake from a man who had known me as a child. "Your father would have wanted you to have this," he said quietly. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." I sat with that knowledge for days, letting it settle into my bones. The penthouse, the savings, the investments, all of it belonged to me. For the first time, I understood just how much Victoria had worked to keep me from believing in my own worth. The bitterness was there, yes, but so was something new, a strange kind of peace. I was no longer the outsider clinging to scraps. I was the rightful owner, whether or not Victoria or Charlotte ever admitted it. Still, I knew better than to trust fate or family secrets. Victoria had built her life on appearances and control. She would not simply step aside because a few lines on a legal document said so. I started with the basics, calling in a locksmith to change the codes on the building's security system, updating the registry for my unit, even adding an extra set of digital locks only I could access. Discrete cameras were installed at the entrance and along the hallway, their lenses hidden among potted plants and picture frames. Paranoia, maybe, but I had learned the hard way that when people believe something belongs to them, they rarely let go without a fight. As Thanksgiving drew near, the invitations began to arrive. Victoria planned everything with military precision: menus, seating charts, place cards written in her angular script. Charlotte posted pictures on her social accounts, tagging herself in the penthouse and writing captions about our family's new beginnings. There were photos of her and Evelyn, the family friend, walking through the living room as if it was their private gallery. Sometimes, scrolling through the feed late at night, I felt like I was watching someone else's life, one where I was always just out of frame. It was around this time that the first real sign appeared. An email sent to Victoria and Charlotte, but accidentally copied to a group chat that included several distant cousins and, by a quirk of fate, myself in it. Victoria wrote, "Once the transfer is complete, Charlotte will host the housewarming. All Morgan has to do is sign the exit papers. It's practically done." The casual cruelty in her words stunned me. For years, I'd told myself I was paranoid, that no one really wanted me gone. Now I had proof. And it was almost a relief. If you've ever had your fears confirmed by accident, you'll know the sensation, a cold calm that makes everything feel sharper, more manageable. I began collecting screenshots, forwarding messages to a private folder, building a small but ironclad archive of evidence. Every careless text, every careless photo, every word that hinted at Victoria's scheme, each one became a small shield. The penthouse was busier than ever as Thanksgiving approached. Victoria brought in designers for last-minute touches, approving flower arrangements and discussing which wall would be best for Charlotte's welcome home portrait. I watched from a distance, silent and unnoticed, like a ghost in my own house. Sometimes I would pass them in the hallway, Victoria barely acknowledging me with a nod, Charlotte's smile as brittle as the champagne flutes she collected for the party. Once, I overheard her laughing with Evelyn, saying she should be grateful we even let her in the family photo. That night, sitting at my kitchen table beneath the soft yellow light, I felt a wave of anger reel, cleansing, and bright. For so long I had tried to keep the peace, tried to earn a place by being useful, invisible, small. But I was not a child anymore, and my days of apologizing for existing were over. The plan began to take shape, clear, simple, and, for the first time, entirely my own. I would let them play their games a little longer. I would let Victoria believe she had already won. But this Thanksgiving, when the whole family gathered in my home, they would learn the truth. And for once, the story would be mine to tell. If you have ever waited your whole life to be heard, you understand. Sometimes, all it takes is a single moment of courage to change everything. Thanksgiving morning dawned gray and still. The city hushed beneath a layer of mist. In my kitchen, I moved quietly through the familiar motions, coffee brewing, bread toasting, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the only company. If you have ever found yourself alone on a day meant for celebration, you know the ache that lingers in those small, ordinary moments. Yet there was a strange comfort to it. I knew what was coming, and this calm was a gift. Victoria arrived first. Of course. As she always did, her coat already draped over the chair she claimed each year, her voice rising in brisk directions to the caterers. I watched her greet the florist as if she were royalty, overseeing the placement of every last arrangement. Charlotte swept in soon after, cheeks pink from the November chill, phone already in hand as she recorded a video for her followers. "Welcome to our family's new home, wait till you see the view." She didn't glance in my direction. She didn't have to. I had become as much a fixture in these rooms as the faded portrait of my parents still hanging in the entryway. Eveline arrived next, trailing a laugh behind her and balancing a stack of hostess gifts, expensive candles, monogamous napkins, a silver tray that glinted in the weak sunlight. "It's just wonderful what you've done with the place, Charlotte," she said, running her hand along the marble counter. Victoria smiled, thin and satisfied. We've all worked so hard to make this house a home again. I slipped quietly into the background, as was my habit, watching as cousins and distant relatives filtered in. Laughter bounced off the high ceilings. Glasses clinked, and the rooms filled with the scent of roasted turkey and spiced apples. Yet beneath the festivities, I felt the undercurrent, something sharp, hidden, ready to surface. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. By early afternoon, I caught a glimpse of Charlotte leading Evelyn and two other friends down the main hallway. They paused at my study, Charlotte whispering, "This will be my office. Once everything's finalized. I've already started planning the decor. Morgan won't need this space anymore. She's moving out soon." Their laughter rang out. Too loud. Too certain. It was the same with Victoria. I overheard her near the balcony, speaking to a cousin in low, conspiratorial tones. "It's all but settled," she said, sipping her wine. "Morgan's time here is coming to an end. She's never belonged in this world." There it was again, that subtle, poisonous certainty. That confidence that comes only from years of getting away with something. If you've ever been talked about as if you weren't in the room, you know the heat that rises in your throat. The shame that tries to wrap itself around your heart. But this time, I was prepared. My phone buzzed with a new security alert. I slipped away to a quiet corner and watched. In real time, as Victoria unlocked my private filing cabinet with a key she wasn't supposed to have. She pulled out a stack of documents, bank statements, property records, the old trust paperwork. She held them up to Charlotte and Evelyn, triumph shining in her eyes. "Proof that everything is as it should be," she said, not realizing the camera caught every word, every movement. Even more damning was the group chat. A distant cousin accidentally looped into the conversation, forwarded me a string of messages Victoria and Charlotte had sent the night before. "All Morgan has to do is sign the exit papers. It's practically done." There were emojis, inside jokes, a confidence that bordered on arrogance. If you've ever wondered what betrayal looks like up close, let me tell you, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's a series of tiny, casual cruelties. A pattern of dismissals so routine that no one even notices anymore. But there was something else, too, a kind of relief. For years, I had been the only one who saw the truth. Now, I had evidence. As dinner was served and the family settled into their usual rhythms, I felt my heart beat slow, my mind sharpen. The penthouse glittered under the chandelier light, crystal glasses and polished silverware shining on the table. Victoria stood at the head, raising a toast to new beginnings. Charlotte beamed. Evelyn dabbed at her eyes, and the rest of the family cheered. All eyes were on them, just as they liked it. I excused myself, phone in hand, and ducked into my study. There, in the quiet, I gathered everything: video clips, screenshots, copies of emails, the new deed signed by the trust, all neatly organized on my laptop. I felt a wave of calm, a sense that, for the first time, I was not playing defense. I was ready to take my story back. Later that night, after the last toast and the final round of applause, I waited until the house was quiet. I changed every lock, reset every security code, and left a single envelope on the kitchen table, a letter addressed to Victoria and Charlotte. Inside was a single sentence: "You will learn the truth soon enough." If you have ever watched the tides turn after a lifetime of holding your breath, You know the feeling that lingered in me as I walked to my room, the knowledge that something had shifted. And there would be no turning back. Tomorrow, the confrontation would come. And for the first time, I would not be silent. I woke the next morning to a city washed in gold. Sunlight pouring through the tall windows and scattering itself across the polished floors. The penthouse felt different, quiet, but not empty. There was a tension in the air, a sense of anticipation that made every movement feel deliberate. If you've ever known the storm was about to break, you'll understand that peculiar stillness the moment before truth steps out from behind the curtain. Victoria was the first to notice the locks. She tried her usual code at the main entrance. Frowning when the keypad blinked red, she pressed again. More insistent this time. "Charlotte, what's wrong with this thing?" Her voice echoed down the hallway, sharp and impatient. Charlotte joined her, a puzzled look on her face as she rattled the handle. "Maybe it's just a glitch." "Mom, call building security." The caterer and the last of the cleaning crew stood awkwardly nearby, uncertain whether to intervene. I let them wait a while. It seemed only fair. For years, I had waited for acknowledgement, for kindness, for a place at the table that was never offered. Now, for the first time, they were the ones on the outside, knocking. When I finally appeared at the door, Victoria's expression shifted from annoyance to disbelief. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice brittle as cracked ice. Charlotte hovered behind her, clutching her purse and glancing around as if searching for an ally. "I changed the locks," I said quietly. "From now on, only those who are invited will enter." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Victoria found her footing, anger surging beneath her carefully painted exterior. "You don't have the right. This is my home. You're just..." she faltered, perhaps realizing too late how easily her mask could slip. "You're here because of our generosity." I felt something inside me settle, finally and completely. "No, Victoria. I'm here because my father left this home to me. The trust transferred all rights and ownership into my name months ago. You know that as well as I do." I pulled out a folder from behind my back, documents, signed and notarized, the legal proof of what I said. I held them out to her, letting her see each page. It was Charlotte who broke first. "This can't be right," she whispered. "Mom, you said..." She looked at Victoria, eyes wide with panic. Victoria snatched the papers from my hand, flipping through them, hair fingers tumbling. "Forgery," she hissed, but her voice lacked conviction. "We'll have our lawyers look at this." At that moment, I reached for the remote on the side table and, with a click, the living room television flickered to life. On screen, the footage played Victoria and Charlotte touring the penthouse, opening drawers, discussing which rooms they would claim. Then, Victoria's voice, clear and unmistakable, once Morgan signs. "All this will be ours. She doesn't belong here. She never has." The silence was absolute. Then, somewhere behind me, I heard a quiet gasp, a cousin. Perhaps. Or Evelyn herself, who had come early for coffee and now stood frozen in the hallway. I spoke carefully, my voice steady. "I've spent my whole life being told what I could and could not have. I accepted it. For a while. But I'm not a child anymore. And this," I gestured around the room, "is mine. I will not be erased from my own story." Victoria tried one last time, her pride flaring. You'll regret this. Morgan, this house was never yours. We let you stay here out of pity. But even as she said the words, I saw her realize how powerless they sounded. The room was filled with relatives, some shocked, some embarrassed, some suddenly eager to look elsewhere. Charlotte started to cry, her hand pressed to her mouth. It was Evelyn who finally broke the tension, her voice trembling but honest. Victoria, it's over. Let it go. The humiliation in Victoria's face was total public. Indéniable. I watched as she gathered her coat. Her daughter. Her pride. Without another word, she walked to the door. The family parted silently. Some with pity. Some with relief. The last thing Victoria said, just before leaving, was spat over her shoulder. You were never family to us. I closed the door behind them. For a moment, the penthouse was silent again, sunlight spilling across the empty space. If you have ever wondered whether truth can set you free, I can tell you sometimes it does. But not before it burns everything falls to the ground. In the days after that Thanksgiving, the penthouse was quieter than ever. The echo of voices, laughter, and sharp words faded into memory, replaced by a new kind of peace, a gentle hush I had never known before. If you've ever endured a storm and watched the sky clear, you'll understand the absence of chaos can feel as strange as its presence. The aftermath came quickly, as it always does when family feuds spill into the open. The group chat was alive with speculation, some relatives blaming Victoria, others expressing relief that the truth was finally out. Clips from the confrontation found their way onto family social media. The footage of Victoria's humiliation replayed again and again, a living reminder that the roles had changed. Victoria, true to form, tried to regroup. She called other relatives, spinning her version of the story, claiming forgery, manipulation, betrayal. But the documents were ironclad, and the legal trail could not be denied. The family lawyer, who had once been her confidant, now confirmed the truth to anyone who asked. The penthouse and the estate are rightfully Morgan's, as per the wishes of her late father and the terms of the trust. It was the first time in my life I had heard someone say those words aloud. It was like water on parched ground. Charlotte, once so sure of her place in the world, stopped calling altogether. Her social posts became vague, filtered images of coffee cups and sunsets. No mention of our new home. If you have ever watched a golden child lose their shine, you'll know the pain is real. But the healing, if it comes, must happen quietly, in private. Some cousins reached out with tentative messages, apologies, confessions that they had always sensed something was wrong but hadn't known how to help. I forgave them. I had learned over the years that not all betrayals are born of cruelty. Some are simply the result of fear, or habit, or the silent belief that nothing can ever change. In a way, I was grateful for their honesty, even if it came late. Victoria made one final attempt at contact, leaving a voicemail thick with pride and desperation. You might think you've won, Morgan, but you will always be alone. Family isn't something you can buy or inherit. Remember that when the silence sets in. I listened to her words, then deleted the message. I had already chosen a different path. For the first time, I let myself build something that was only mine. I reached out to the friends who had stood by me through the lean years, the ones who saw me not as an inconvenience or a stepping stone, but as a person worth knowing. My world began to fill with new voices, colleagues from my volunteer work, neighbors who offered real conversation over tea, mentors who wanted nothing in return but kindness and respect. With the legal battle behind me, I started to breathe more deeply. The penthouse became my home in every sense of the word. I changed the paint in the study, replaced old furniture with pieces I loved, filled the rooms with plants and books and laughter. My chosen family, those I trusted, who had earned their place, gathered around my table for quiet meals and long conversations. No one kept score. No one demanded more than I could give. If you've ever found yourself rebuilding from the rubble of old expectations, you know the sweetness of starting fresh. There were hard moments. Of course, grief for the family I had wished for, sadness for Charlotte's confusion, even a pang of regret for the good times that had been few, but real. But above all, there was relief, and hope, and a new sense of belonging. Sometimes, late at night, I would walk through the halls, barefoot, feeling the coolness of the wood beneath my feet. The city lights outside blinked softly, 1,000 silent witnesses to the life I was finally living. I no longer apologized for the space I took up, for the dreams I carried, for the love I chose to share. For the first time, my story was truly my own. If you have ever wondered whether justice is possible, whether a quiet person can ever win, I am here to tell you yes. But winning is not always what you expect. Sometimes, it is as simple as finding peace in your own home, surrounded by those who have chosen you not out of obligation, but out of love. 6 months have passed since that final confrontation. In the city's changing light, my life has unfolded into something I once believed was reserved for other people, those who belonged easily, those who were never questioned about the worth of their place at the table. The penthouse, once a battleground, is now wholly my own. I have painted the rooms in soft, warm colors, sage green in the study, pale blue in the bedroom. I hung my parents' photographs in the hallway, not as reminders of loss, but as quiet witnesses to how far I have come. In the mornings, sunlight pours through tall windows and bathes my kitchen in gold. I have started new routines: fresh coffee, a walk around the block, a visit to the small community garden where I volunteer most weekends. My days are filled with work that means something, not just to me, but to others. The silence that Victoria once warned me about is not emptiness at all, but a kind of peace I had only dreamed of. The family I was born into has grown more distant. I receive the occasional email from a cousin, an update from a distant aunt, but the frantic claims and demands have faded away. Even Victoria, I hear, has left the city, moving in with relatives across the country. Charlotte's name drifts through the grapevine now and then, but always as a side note, someone's roommate, someone's coworker. Never the center of the world as she once was. The old patterns have ended. My home, my life, are finally free from their shadow. But here's what matters most in the absence of old ties. New ones have blossomed. My chosen family, a circle of friends, neighbors, and mentors gathers in my living room for long dinners and laughter. We share stories, secrets, quiet support. Some of them have known loss. All of them know the value of kindness given without expectation. We are bound not by blood, but by choice. If you have ever wondered whether such a family is possible, let me assure you it is. It can be. With the stability of my inheritance, I have taken steps that once seemed impossible. I joined the board of a small local charity, helping other young people who grew up as I did, never quite sure where they belonged. I have invested in a community startup, run by a team of bright, hopeful souls who want to change the world in small, patient ways. My days are not without challenge, but they're mine, shaped by purpose and hope. Sometimes, the past tries to reach me a letter from Victoria, unsigned, asking if perhaps we could speak. An awkward message from Charlotte, full of apologies and longing. I read these quietly and set them aside. Forgiveness is a gift I give myself, not a doorway back to the old world. The only future I want is the one I am building now. In the evenings, as dusk falls over the city and the windows reflect 1,000 tiny lights, I sit by the window with a cup of tea and think of everything that has passed. If you have ever lost your way or doubted your place, know that there is a path forward. Family can be chosen. Peace can be claimed. And sometimes, just sometimes, the quiet ones do win. Have you ever had to redefine your idea of family? Do you believe that blood alone earns loyalty? Or must it be proven through care and respect? I would love to hear your thoughts. For me, I have learned that freedom is not something given, but something taken gently, persistently, until it becomes a part of who you are. This is my story. And for once, it ends not with a confrontation, but with the bloom of something tender and new.